Recording has started.
Reconvening the Board of Commissioners meeting for 3:04. We will call that to order and reconvene. We have one item, which is a carryover item from our 10 a.m. meeting. And this is actually for the FMLA, temporary FMLA. So Kristen, you had previewed this a little bit, and we'd continue the discussion on this. So we'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So we're required to allow employees to take time under basically it's an emergency FMLA if they are eligible, for if a school is closed and they have to take care of their children. It doesn't count for if the school's open and you choose to have them home virtually. It's only if the school closes. When the ruling when it was first put out in April, there's been a lot of clarification since then. And most recently, they have said that it's up to the employer if they want to allow for this type of leave to be taken intermittently or only as blocks. So what some schools are doing, and I can use Penns Valley as an example, if the county were to go yellow, from green we went to yellow, kids would be home 2 days a week and in school 3 days a week, and the next week 3 days home and 2 days at school. They'd be alternating. So perhaps I wouldn't need to take a whole week off, but I might need 2 days. Or it could be that a spouse can only get 2 days off, so our employee needs to take 3 days off if the school's completely closed. That's the idea with allowing it to be taken intermittently. So I just need direction from the board if they're okay with it being done intermittently, or if they only want it to be allowed to be done as blocks of time.
Okay. So, for example, what happened at Wingate Elementary? Right. They said they're going to close for 2 weeks. So an employee would essentially put in for 2 weeks of intermittent FMLA, and they'd be allowed to do that.
Is it be an emergency FMLA is what it's called. It's a specific FMLA category. It does count towards their 12 weeks of FMLA. They are paid 2/3 of their pay, not to exceed a certain daily amount and certain weekly amount. They are allowed to use vacation sick personal to make them up to the full pay amount if they choose to do so. We have some requests from people that would technically not be eligible because they fall under, say, emergency service providers, which we would need to know if we can make exceptions for those. I have a corrections officer and a CYS worker both asking for exceptions. I have write-ups from them explaining why they would need an exception made. The law technically does not apply to them, so that's why an exception would have to be made to allow them to do that. What some other counties have done is they allow those employees in those categories that are the basically disqualified categories to do their jobs to take the EFMLA so they can take the time, but they're not compensated. So they either take it unpaid or they use their sick vacation personal. They're not entitled to that 2/3 pay. But their job is still protected, basically, if they have to take the time.
Okay.
So those are all things we have to consider. One, allowing it to be used intermittently, which is just the direction if you guys want us to do that. And then two, if you are going to allow exceptions, and if so, for those categories that technically aren't eligible.
Okay. Commissioner Higgins, any feedback, thoughts on this?
Did you say something, Mike? My video stuttered.
Oh no, that's okay. Did you have any thoughts on this? I think it's pretty straightforward in terms of it. I just wanted to understand a little bit more about it. So, but I know that you might have had a question or two.
It just basically revolved around HR and finance and controller's office being prepared for this. And as Kristen mentioned, how we're going to handle 24/7 type operations where if an employee's out for 2 somewhat random days a week, what does that look like for our critical operations?
So I have worked with Jason and Koshi. We set up Heather and I worked with them to set up a pay code specifically for this emergency FMLA. So we will be able to keep track of that time in case it becomes reimbursable under anything. I'm not really sure if it is, because it is the federal government requiring us to pay these people. So we do have a separate code, so we will be able to track it. I mean, I guess for those offices that are 24-hour operations, we'd probably need to check with the supervisors of those departments when a request comes in to see if they're okay with it as well, if they would support the person being able to take the time. I guess it's a step we can take. We have prepared all the documents. We have the forms and all of that ready to give to employees and to have them complete. It's just we're just now getting the school related ones this week.
All right, so department heads that are 24/7, like corrections, 911, and to a certain extent, children and youth,
Yes.
all aware of the policy. And what I'm hearing you say is that if we just have no way of covering for the employee, we can tell them no this week, but we'll try to make it work next week.
Technically, they're not eligible for it under the federal law. The law says they're not eligible for this emergency FMLA time. But we have 2 employees, like I said, one of the corrections and one in CYS, that are saying they don't have any other option and they can't leave their children alone due to, age, and you can't leave a kindergartner home alone all day to self-school. So they don't have a choice. You know what I mean? Like, so they're either going to take the time off sick or we're going to grant them the time off. Either way, they're not going to be able to work.
Well, yeah, and I think, from my perspective as well, I think it's excellent to do. We should do it. It's just from an operational standpoint, if we would have a number of people ask off. So typically with FMLA, there is a little bit of planning, or we have kind of a track record with how many requests come in and how we can shift and move people around. I just see this as potentially being, we might know next week that a full school district is going to be going home or going to remote learning for 2 days, and that changes, what we're doing here. And also with FMLA, my understanding has always been that we can't say yes or no to it. It has to be granted. But you're saying emergency, we can say no to it?
Only for these certain categories of employees that are not eligible. So emergency responders, corrections officers, emergency personnel, and CYS.
Oh, okay.
Basically caseworker type positions. I mean, like administrative staff
Right.
at CYS is going to be different than a caseworker.
Okay. I think that's helpful. And now that I remember this, with the CARES Act and all the other legislation that was passed, there were exceptions where some individuals were not eligible for the 2 weeks of coverage. There were certain things. Okay. All right. That makes me feel a lot better, because it's sort of like what we did in that circumstance where we didn't automatically give if somebody was there were certain allowances we made. So I think I'm comfortable with it at this point. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we have not had an overwhelming number. We have had 5 people reach out to us. 2 of them only need a couple days a week. That's why I would like the permission to use it intermittently. Some others need it basically full time. We have 1 corrections officer and 1 CYS worker that will need it for the duration that Wingate is closed, basically for the next 2 weeks. So I would need to know if exceptions can be made in those cases. If you want, I can send you the information from those employees saying why they would like an exception made, because they fall into that not eligible category. But that's really your call, not mine, how you want me to handle those.
I would think giving the department head or elected official the flexibility with making that call would probably be the best thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. If if the department head or elected official can make the FMLA happen for somebody who would not normally otherwise be eligible, that's good. If we're going to be jeopardizing the health and safety of Center County citizens, or to grant it, then we're probably not going to be able to grant it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use the example of the one corrections officer. His wife works at Mount Nittany, so she can't take off either as a healthcare worker. So they're both stuck in this place that they both fall in that category. So that's why he's asking for us for an exception. And again, with those groups that could use an exception, you have the option of paying them or not paying them under the rule, making them use sick time, or we pay them the 2/3 like the rest of the county employees. That's up to you.
Okay, so we would be looking to basically make a motion to allow for temporary, if you wanted to state it, Kristen.
I need to know if the emergency FMLA may be taken intermittently. That's the first thing.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve county employees who are eligible for taking the emergency FMLA on an intermittent basis.
I will second that. Been moved and seconded. Any final discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried 2-1. Okay? I'm sorry, 2-0. And then is there a second part two to that?
The second motion would be to, if you would like to allow those in the exception category to still take the FMLA as long as it's approved by their department head.
Would there be a motion to that effect? Commissioner Higgins, would you be willing to make that motion?
Sure, let me try to word this correctly. Motion to approve the possibility of county staff who are classified as emergency personnel under the CARES Act to take intermittent emergency FMLA with the approval of their department head or elected official for row offices.
Right. It would be not just emergency FMLA in general, intermittent or continuous. Sorry,
Right, emergency FMLA, period.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, I will set. I'm comfortable with that amendment. Okay. Any other further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried 2-0. Okay. Thanks, Kristen, for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no other items to come before the Board of Commissioners at this time?
I believe that's it at this point.
Okay. We look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 3:18.
All in favor, and I will second that. All in favor say aye. Oh, wait a second. Jerry is asking something.
Yes.
Oh, did we get that already?
No, I think you would like to know, I need to know if it will be, when we say that those people that are normally not eligible, would they be paid under the ruling or not paid?
Okay, so would there be a motion? Would you remove your motion, Commissioner, to adjourn?
I'll remove my motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll remove my second. That's okay. All right. So, and this is the 2/3 pay we're talking about?
Yes. If approved, would a normally non-eligible employee be eligible to receive the pay or just the protected time off? So.
I would think they would be eligible, that we would make them eligible for parity purposes.
I think
as long as their department head or row officer approves.
Okay. I just wanted clarification that it would be with pay. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. So that we have consensus on that. There's
Okay.
consensus there. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then Natalie is asking if we're discussing anything else. The MH proposal.
I think she's talking about the Catch Consulting proposals. I think that was the original cut and paste about this second meeting.
Right. No. Yeah, we're going to schedule a meeting next week to talk about that as an informational meeting. So nothing at this point on that. Okay. All right. So now, motion to adjourn now.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Motion adjourned at 3:20.
I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.